All right, hey everyone, welcome back to The Last Nighters. We're going to be talking about The Ghost in the Shell, and this can be found at lastnighters.com/4. And my name is Daniel, and my host is Robert, and we're doing this YouTube thing with Last Nighters, talking about movies from a real unconventional perspective. And we have a guest, a friend of ours named Liam. So say hello to everyone, Liam.
Hello to everyone, Liam.
All right, perfect. Thank you. It's almost like he's a trained SEAL. And we're going to dive right into this. I got to get the Google description going. So it's Ghost in the Shell, and this is the live-action version, though I also saw the original anime, which was actually quite good. But this came out 2017, PG-13, 2 hours long, starring ScarJo, and it got a 6.4 on the IMDb, 45% Rotten Tomatoes, and 75% of Google users like it. So it's got a little bit of a mixed bag on the ratings and reviews here. And here's the Google description. In the near future, Major is the first of her kind, a human who is cyber-enhanced to be a perfect soldier devoted to stopping the world's most dangerous criminals. When terrorism reaches a new level that includes the ability to hack into people's minds and control them, Major is uniquely qualified to stop it. As she prepares to face a new enemy, Major discovers that her life was stolen instead of saved. Now she will stop at nothing to recover her past while punishing those who did this to her. So this came out August of last year, box office of $169.8 million. So it maybe broke even. I imagine this was kind of a big budget deal. What's your first impression on the Google description there, our guest Liam?
I actually really like that description. I think it's pretty accurate, and it picks up on interesting points. I think most people watching this won't have thought of that, the emphasis on that terrorists can hack into people's minds. And I know that that's a part of it, but I think it's a really important part because that is a trend that I think will be, and we can get into this later in the show, but I think that is a trend in cybersecurity that we do need to watch out for. So I like the description. And I think that their low rating is probably because people who watched the original didn't think it was true to the original story or whatever. Because I thought it was a pretty good movie, not having seen the original. But so maybe you can say what you think compared to the anime.
Well, I've got a little bit of a rant about that, but I'll save that for later. Robert, what's your take on the description?
The only issue I had was the plot spoiler. So spoilers all the time. The very first line of the Google description is that she's the first of her kind, which is clearly not the case. If you watch the film, she's actually just the latest in a series of her kind. Other than that, sounds fine.
Well, she's kind of the first of her kind, right? Like, because the other guy was a failure version, so she added the successful humanoid, whatever you'd call her. She is the first one that worked.
Well, everyone's an individual.
I would argue that
everyone's an individual, so they're all the first of their kind.
Exactly. I'm rooting for this description here. I think it's good.
All right. Liam's a Google description apologist. Robert is not so much.
Yeah, my only beef with it is that they're claiming that the terrorists have gained the ability to hack into people's mind, and her job is to stop it, but she is also a victim of that very same thing by her corporate/cronyist employer who has a very cozy relationship with the government.
So you're saying that corporate cronyist employers that have a cozy relationship with the government aren't terrorists?
Oh, hey, touche, but I think that the argument in the Google description would be that they are not. They're the good guys, right?
That's
well,
true.
Sort of.
Yeah, I like this Google description. No, this Google description it's very woke. I like it. I think it's good. It's really deep.
So deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
So deep. It's clean.
So we had a couple of categories that you guys had written down in our pre-show stuff. So, Robert, what's your first note there that we can dive into?
Okay, so we listed a couple of main talking points, and the first one I have is, okay, well, let me just kind of briefly go over my notes here. Did anybody understand why the hacker had to go somewhere physically? I have a note here and says, why would the hacker need to go anywhere? He's a hacker, not like some sort of a superhero person.
Yeah, I don't know that. That's a good question. Well, wait, where did he have to go?
Well, that's just it. It must have been sometime in the beginning because I don't remember what this note refers to. Because doesn't the movie start off with her in the tea house, and then all the tea house gets shot up by the hacker guy?
Yeah. That's not exactly what was going on, but I know what you're talking. Yeah, it's basically there was a meeting, and then the geisha robot started shooting people, and then she jumped off the building, and basically stripped naked and bashed through the window, which was awkward because I was watching that while I was at the gym in the hot tub, and she taking off her clothes, and I was looking around seeing if anyone could see what was on my phone. So
Nice.
that was pretty weird. I didn't want to be that guy, that guy in the hot tub looking at some scantily clad women on his phone.
There's a guy that does that?
No, but I would be that guy if anyone had seen me.
You're that guy.
Apparently you are that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what, yeah. So that was embarrassing, but... They
somehow find him, and then they find out that he's using all these humans to create their own network. Remember this scene?
Yeah.
And then how did they find them if he was using humans to find his own networks, which is why they couldn't find him?
Damn it. I don't remember, but I think there was a reason. No, didn't he want her to find him? He told her where he was.
Lure her.
He wanted to lure her in so he could convince her to turn against that crony capitalist, So
the main crux of the movie seems to be that this cyber company has kidnapped these people and is doing experiments on them and turns them into these robot people. But then they're trying to eliminate the old versions so that the Major is the only one, only the successes exist.
Mm-hmm.
So the hacker guy, played by the guy that used to be on Boardwalk Empire, so I was like, oh, I know that guy, is calling it self-defense, these murders that he's doing, because he's, killing all these scientists and other people that are working on these programs, right? So that would be a point of discussion. Is it legitimate what he's doing, like the Bush doctrine of killing them before they kill him? Or did that point come up with anybody else?
I mean, that is a good point. I think that's certainly something worth talking about. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that's a really good point.
Okay. Or how about the morality of the scientists implanting false memories into the Major to give her motivation to fight the terrorists? That seems like a horrific thing.
Yeah, that's definitely not good. Does that violate the non-aggression principle? I mean,
I would agree.
She gave consent every time, right? She gave consent every time.
But she was, right, I mean, they kidnapped her as she was a live human being.
Okay, but say that it started, say that we didn't know that, and it was just started where she was a robot. And they kept, and all we knew is that they just kept giving her these things and she consented. But then, obviously, they were lying to her about the situation. It was really suppressing her memories or whatever. But she didn't know that, but she still consented. Does that count? I mean, she's an adult.
No. They were defrauding her.
Why? How is it defrauding? If I say
it's not informed consent, they're withholding vital information. They're lying to her, and the consent is just going through the motions. Like she doesn't fully understand or have consideration to enter the contract.
Wait, it's not a contract though. There's no property rights transfer. Why? What is the
She's
giving her consent. She's coming to an agreement on something that
Gentlemen,
they're not.
Okay, so that's a good point. No, we got my 2 points.
Okay, I have a few things too. I have a few things we could talk about.
All right,
as I was rewatching, I realized this was like actually a really good movie in terms of content because it's about all the areas that I've been interested in lately. I mean, it's about how this. So there was an interesting line that was just a throwaway line in the very beginning, and it was as they were flying through the city or driving through the city or whatever. There was a speaker, a public announcement that said something along the lines of, "Cyber crimes are a capital offense, minimum sentence of 15 years." And because obviously this is like a futuristic cyberpunk city where everything is digitized, everything is connected. That's why the hacker could do so much damage in the physical real world. And so that raises several points about, first of all, how does cyber security play in with libertarian theory? Also, just what is one thing I've been kind of looking into recently is the kind of what the future landscape of cybersecurity is, and how that relates to blockchain technology and government and stuff like that. And I've been kind of diving deep on that, so I could probably talk about that for a little bit if that's interesting. And then the other thing is just the feasibility of the technology used there. I mean, like putting a brain, putting a human's brain to a robot's body, and to what degree can you do that? To what degree can you upload your consciousness? And then maybe what are the ethical implications of having a person that's not really a person, but it's just the mind of the person, but it's in a robot's body, etc. We can talk about that. And then also just it's kind of, this is the cyberpunk genre, and it's like a futuristic city. And I've been studying cities a lot recently because I'm very much interested in the competitive governance movement. And I don't know if you guys listen to episode of the Tom Woods Show with Joe McKinney of the Startup Societies Foundation, talking about startup societies. Basically, people are making cities all around the world, like free cities, trying to get it in special economic zones so they're outside the jurisdiction of whatever government owns the land they're on. And then there's also seasetting, and these are interesting movements. And I think they're the best libertarian strategy out there. And I think there's a lot you could talk about in terms of the city of the future and how this is a very futuristic city. And so those are like kind of the three things that I was thinking of. I don't know, whatever ones that are interesting we can talk about.
All right, well, let's get into the first of our categories. So we bring up a few categories, talk about it for a little bit, and give a little bit of a rating. And one of our favorites is the number of tears jerked. So it's essentially the emotional content. If you've seen the movie Equilibrium, they rate everything with a certain amount of emotional content, and it becomes contraband or illegal over a certain level. So that's why they destroy all the art and all the books and all the music and everything. So let's get into that. Number of tears jerked. Was there an emotional connection for you? And I'll go to Robert on this one.
If this movie existed in the Equilibrium universe, it would be completely safe from destruction. There was zero tears jerked from my point of view. Not that I don't mind Scarlett Johansson as a performer. I think she's pretty dang good. She's not my favorite actor, but decent. But I just don't think that she was given any kind of material to work with. This movie didn't connect with me on an emotional level. I thought it was more style and interested in telling what the story it tried to tell. The only time I kind of choked up a little bit is at the very end when she's talking to her mother, and that's kind of an easy deal when you got like the mom who has a lost child, and I can respond to that. But for the most part, I would say that maybe if they cut out that scene, this movie would be safe in Equilibrium. Other than that, not so much. I didn't really follow her struggle to be a robot and a not, and having Batu try to help her and the alienation she felt. I didn't connect with her on that. Tim?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's really hard to relate, to someone who's complaining about being a robot all the time, and you're the only non-human, sort of human person on the planet. None of us are in that situation, so not very empathetic. It was good. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was overly dry or that the acting was bad or anything, but I think the story was not really an emotionally oriented story. There was this part with the mother, but even that, I definitely didn't feel any sort of sorrow while watching it.
All right, so very low on the feels for you guys. See, I had this sense of her struggling with her identity and who and what she was, and having these false implanted memories. And when she was out diving in the waterway, she wanted to be down there so she could feel nothing. So she was like this angsty, nihilistic teenager still trying to find out who she was in this new cyborg body that was being used as a tool, as a weapon by the crony capitalists.
This movie is an allegory for puberty? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, that's right.
So I got some feels out of this, though they weren't like great feels. They were kind of angsty feels, like Smells Like Teen Spirit feels is what I got out of it.
Okay. Well, as an allegory for teenagerness, I guess it's been a while since I went through puberty, so I had a hard time identifying.
Yeah, I am much closer to that than you, so
Yes, much.
Like a year.
You're still waiting, right?
Well, I guess I'll go through that maybe next year or something. So I'll see what it's like then.
All right, so very, very low on the number of tears jerks.
Oh, and one more thing. There is a scene where the corporation guy, the main villain dude, and the scientist person argue about who owns the major. So the major is this construct of this corporation that is closely government tied, like you mentioned. And I don't know, should we talk about let's just talk about everything, I suppose. So the major used to be a anti-technology kind of revolutionary kid, and then she was kidnapped, had her brain removed, whatever, copied and put into this robot body. And there's a scene in the movie where the corporation owner and the lead scientist argue about who owns the major, who owns this robot weapon / tool / asset. And, of course, the corporation guy's saying, hey, we own her. We built her. This is our piece of property. We can do with it whatever we want. We could destroy it, or we could enhance it. We could put it in a box and turn it off, and who cares? The scientist is arguing that it's theirs because they actually built it. But then there's also the unsaid argument of, well, the major has self-ownership. She's a fully conscious, sentient creature, and she owns herself. So I would argue for the latter. I would argue that the corporation guy does own the nuts and the bolts, and it's a private property up to the point at which it becomes sentient, in which case then you lose ownership of it.
So does the corporation own the ankle part? Like, could they take back the ankle and she just have no foot? You know what I'm saying? Like, can you like chop off her hand and give it to the corporation, and would that be fine? Assuming she doesn't feel any pain when you do that?
I would say that you wouldn't. I would say that once you create her and she assumes, full sentience, and these are the assets that she has, this is the body that she has, then she assumes ownership over that entire body. That would be my argument.
Like as a unit, as a whole unit, complete unit.
Yeah, every little nut and bolt is hers.
But isn't that pretty arbitrary? Like if I don't know, say that they built a cannon launcher on her arm or something, like some built-in gun thing, and then that was detachable.
How dare you? A Japanese person designing a robot with a cannon on its arm? I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? No, but say she had that, and then there was detachable. So it was like, let's not get this, just because her body is in the shape of a human, and that means something to us because we are humans, it doesn't really make it categorically different than anything else. So say exactly what she was, but she also had a cannon launcher holster on her arm, and it came with a cannon. And when she initially woke up, that cannon was there. Would they be allowed to take? Is that her cannon now? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, even if you could swap it out for some sort of machine gun or something, or some laser blaster, you could swap it out, but it was attached to her in the beginning. Would that be considered her cannon, or would that just be their cannon that they put on her holster, or is that their holster that they put on her arm, or her arm on their arm on her body, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, unfortunately, I think you have to give it to her, because otherwise the argument is, does she own any part of her body? In which case, is she just some sort of a robot brain? Does she even get to own the brain? Or does she own anything? Or is she not a piece of property? Or does she not own herself?
Well, the brain was human, right?
Is the corporation the owner?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is a continuum problem, and I don't think that there is a clear answer for it in libertarian ethics. Although I do think that there is a kind of a practical way of finding out. And that would be if you go to a court system and say there's even, let's just say there's not even a libertarian society. Let's say this is not everyone agrees with libertarianism. So let's say just any court system, there are continuum problems where you have to go to a jury and you have to go to arbitrators and judges, and they have to decide on where one person's property ends and the other begins. Every society has had this problem. And I think that a court system would have to decide, and it would be cut off somewhere. I mean, like there's the dust molecules in her hair that fall off of her hair and go on the seat on the chair that she was on, and she leaves, and then she can't say, oh, you have my dust molecules, right? I mean, that's a classic example of something that people will use to try to thwart the non-aggression principle, throw some sort of little particle or something and say that that's a form of aggression. Well, there's a continuum, and that's what courts are there for, to try to decide. So I don't know if there's a clear-cut theoretical answer. I think it really just depends on what does the common law legal system come up with, and how are property lines drawn in the society that they're in.
Okay. So I think that's an excellent answer and an excellent response to what a libertarian society would come about, or how they would respond to this question. But just from a personal opinion, do you think that she has any kind of self-ownership claim, or is she a piece of property of the corporation that built her?
I mean, my natural intuition is that her body, anything that resembles her human body, is that is hers. And if she was given a shirt by them, that they could reasonably own that shirt and just have clothed her in it. And if they had bought that shirt and given it to her, I think that's fair to say, okay, can you, now that you've changed into clothes, like, can you return the shirt? That was our lab shirt or something. You know what I'm saying? So intuitively, I think, yeah, she owns her body. But I also, I don't want to get caught in this kind of, what's the word, like anthrocentric bias that people often have, where you're biased towards the human body. You're biased towards thinking that humans are somehow special in some way categorically, just because that's how we tend to think about it. But philosophically, there's not really any difference. Like because I don't know if the rocket launcher would be hers. I don't know if she came in a shirt initially, if that shirt would be hers, or where you draw that line. I don't know. I don't necessarily have an opinion on that, but my intuition is the body. So it's a tough question. I'm not sold one way or the other.
Well, it's a good thing that she's mostly naked throughout the whole movie, so
yeah,
the whole
right.
shirt question is kind of relevant, I guess. But in the anime version, towards the end, she says, "As a sentient being, I demand political asylum." So she is aware of her self-awareness. Now, the other thing, and this is related to, does the corporation own anything related to her? And it's revealed later on in the movie that they abducted her and implanted false memories and basically destroyed her natural given body, took her brain out and put it into another body, and then hacked her brain. So I think that they have committed a multitude of violations against her, and that the whole question of whether the shirt or the rocket launcher is hers or theirs is kind of a moot point, because you got to figure out how to deal with the massive aggression that's already taken place.
I agree, and I also want to say that, just kind of amending onto my last point, that they may own her foot. I don't know. I tend to say they don't, but they certainly don't own all of her, because her mind they don't own that. I mean, she's clearly, as you said, a sentient being, and therefore has, or at least in my conception of libertarian ethics, ought to have the right of self-ownership. But the other point you were making, which I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. What were you just saying? Sorry.
See, I'm going to do the same thing and be like, what the fuck was I just talking about?
Yeah, I know.
You guys were talking about the aggression, how they destroyed her body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they basically
murdered her.
They did murder her. And then they made a copy.
They literally did.
And put it into this robot body.
Yeah, and then they falsified her memories. So they were hacking her mind and defrauding her. And Robert, what is it with our last several episodes? It's like they're all related, right? Like this hand cannon thing is like Eve from WALL-E, and the mind hacking was what we were just talking about in Gamer with Jerry Butler. So like all of these movies
we are
the
attracted
same.
to these movies. Yeah, I know. Oh, pop culture is just one big blender, and you just never know what's going to come out. It's just different variations of the same thing.
Yeah, it's with, so they got, so here's an interesting take on this. They killed her originally, and so did they kill her, or did they bring her close to death?
They murdered her body and harvested the brain.
Okay, they murdered her. Okay, so if they murdered her body, and then they basically used parts. They used parts of her brain. They took her brain and they put it in another body. But I mean, there's a point there in between where before she died, she was a person, and then she died, and then clearly at that point she's no longer a person now. She's just dead meat, right? She's just matter, just sitting there. And they used some of that matter that was in her body, and then they used that as the basis to build another person, so to speak. So is she the same person?
I'd argue, yeah, she's a copy, and they did implant false memories, and there's another instance of this in the movie with the garbage truck driver. He's also given false memories to where he's led to believe that he has a wife and a kid, and he's trying to do something for them, and it's like a motivating factor for him. But it's the reality is his mind has also been hacked, and he lives alone in a studio apartment and doesn't even have a girlfriend or something. It's a little bit fuzzy in this live action version, and in the anime you get a little bit more of the background, so it makes a bit more sense.
So speaking on this, the fact that they've been hacked and that they've been given implanted false memories and all this, you guys were getting into a bit of a heated discussion before we started recording about whether or not the major is able to give informed consent. Because at certain points during the movie, they keep asking her, do you give consent for me to do X or Y, like having to recharge her and do different things and diagnostics and whatever with her brain and some such stuff. And I know Daniel was arguing that it's not possible, and Liam was maybe arguing the other side. So I'd like to hear that discussion.
Yeah, let's talk about that, and then after that, I'd like to talk about if I'm just saying this so I don't forget, and we don't have to talk about it, but we should also talk about if hacking people's minds is actually a violation of the NAP. Okay, so my case for this is that she gave consent, and I don't have a really strong opinion on this, but this is how I lean. She gave consent every time that they modified her memories. And they said, can we modify your memories? Can we delete this? Can we do this? And she said yes. She, as an adult, has a completely developed brain. She said, yes, I give consent. She didn't ask, well, I don't know all the facts. Maybe I should, go and get a second opinion or anything like that. She didn't look into it. She didn't try to modify her own memories and see what was going on or anything like that. She just gave consent. And so, and yes, they lied to her, but what's wrong with lying? I mean, there was no contract, and which I think is the case that you're going to probably make, that there was a contract. I'd say there was no contract. There was no exchange of value. They just asked if they could do something, and she said yes.
All right, so I'll destroy your argument.
Okay, go for it.
Sweet.
All right, so very simply put, even within the movie, the doctor who's sympathetic to her even admits to her that the whole giving consent
I know that.
is for show, and that they don't really need it, and it doesn't mean anything. But not only that, but she doesn't have informed consent. She's not aware of what she's agreeing to. They've screwed up her mind. She is not able to make this decision. And there's court case precedents for this. Recently in Miami, a doctor was down at a strip club, and he spent $112,000, or racked up this bill for $112,000 with 4 different strippers. Goes to court over this because he doesn't want to pay. And the club owner's like suing him or whatever. It turns out that the women were drugging him so that he would spend freely. Like he was like basically roofied, right?
Yeah. Right.
So they were chemically screwing with his mind. So it's very similar to what's going on in this movie, Ghost in the Shell. And there's no way that he was making informed, conscious decisions to spend that money or do the things that were done. And it's not like he roofied himself. It's not like somebody gets super drunk or does a lot of drugs and then, they're still responsible for what they've done. No, this was something that happened to him, just like with the Major.
Right. So, okay. There's a few differences there. So first of all, yes, you're right that in the big picture they were going to like physically force it anyway. I mean, I think that's let's not bring that into discussion because obviously that's not okay, right? Injecting someone with something when they say they don't want it is not okay. But that aside, so the difference is if you get, I mean, did they say, here, have some roofies? Roofies make you lose weight. Like, try this roofies out, okay. And then he took roofies. No, that's not what happened. They gave him alcohol, presumably, right? And then they put roofies in the alcohol, and then, he, unbeknownst to him, he consumed roofies. In this situation, they said, can we modify your memories? Can we delete your memories? And she said, yes, you can delete my memory. Oh, this memory, was a glitch. You saw this cat walking down the street, but it really wasn't there or whatever. Oh, can I delete that? Yes, you can delete it. Now, they happen to not tell the truth about the circumstance of everything, but I don't think if you said this is roofies, I mean, I don't even know if roofies are legal. So, but assuming that's out of the equation, you say these are roofies. This is a chemical compound. This is what it is. But it'll make you lose weight. Do you want to have some? Can I give you some? And then you say yes, I would like some, and you take it. I mean, that's really stupid. I don't know if that's illegal or should be illegal. I guess there's a debate there, but I don't think that's a clear cut case.
Well, for me, it's very clear cut because they implanted all of the false memories in her mind, and then any of the semblance or the actual live memories that have been suppressed that started to break through, they were suppressing those, and that was what they were asking to delete, and they were lying about what it was. They were lying about how she came to be. They were lying about what her origin was. They were lying about everything. So they weren't being honest in any of this, and so giving her the illusion of giving consent is just that. It's just an illusion. Like, she has no idea what she's agreeing to. She has no idea what those things are. They're telling her it's nothing. So I disagree with you. I think that they are violating her every way, 6 ways from Sunday.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that if I have a apple stand and I'm selling apples and I tell people that apples will make you live forever and people believe me, and maybe that's a stupid thing to tell people, but let's say they actually believe me and they're that dumb and they buy my apples, assuming, or not even buying it, right? Because then that would be like a guarantee of an effect that is then reneged on, and it was canceled the contract. But if I give them free apples from my apple stand, and I tell them, oh yeah, these make you live forever, then I don't know. I think you're right that the overall circumstances of the situation were very bad, and that was definitely a violation of the NAP. But if you look in isolation at just deleting the memory, when they asked her, they literally said, you have this memory. Can I delete this? And she said yes. I mean, to me, that's like saying, this is an apple. Do you want it for free? No strings attached, not give me $50 and it'll make you live forever. No, just have this free apple, because they didn't charge her. I mean, as far as I know, they didn't charge her for those injections. So it is definitely debatable. I don't have a super strong opinion on it, but I tend to think that in isolation is okay, or maybe not morally okay. Maybe I would say you're a jerk for lying in the first place, but I don't know if it violates the non-aggression principle. I mean, lying certainly doesn't have to violate the non-aggression principle unless it's reneging on a contract and thereby invalidating the contract and creating a property transfer, title transfer. So one other tangential point on this is, so say that I'm just trying to think of an example. Like, say that someone was abused in some way, and maybe this wasn't even like a violation of physical, bodily, or property rights, but this was instead maybe emotional abuse. Like there's a guy, and say he had a daughter, and he cussed at his daughter and called her very bad names and humiliated her and stuff that's not illegal necessarily, but it's like really messed up, bad stuff that only a jerk would do. And then say that that person used words in a way that that repressed the memories of that abuse, and that manipulated that person to act according to that person's desire. But this is all verbal.
You mean like in Get Out, like another movie that we've done?
Oh, really? I don't know.
These all tie together, all these movies.
Right. So if someone was using words, let's say it was words and it was not a chemical injection, and yet they achieved all the same ends. They repressed the memories. They were very good manipulators. Maybe they knew hypnosis or whatever. But they used words to repress the memories and make the person do whatever they wanted. Is that I mean, to me, that's clearly not a violation of the non-aggression principle.
So wait a minute. Are you saying that hypnosis with the intent to do harm is not an NAP violation?
Yes.
Daniel, you've seen Get Out. Would you agree with that?
They were doing it to make him murderable.
But do you think that hypnosis was a part of the violation, or just when they started physically assaulting him?
Well, hold on. Let's separate these two things, right? If I come up to you and I say, "Come here," and then someone else comes in, when you come here, so you can get in line of the sight, and then someone shoots you with a sniper rifle. Me saying "come here" was murder. Like I was party to murder, right? But that's not to say that just saying "come here" is at all bad. It's not bad at all to say "come here." I mean, I'm saying it right now, right? So doing hypnosis is totally fine, but doing hypnosis to kill someone is not fine. And doing hypnosis, like if all you did was hypnosis, but the hypnosis was to get someone to die, that's like saying "come here."
Well, it sounds like you're reversing your position, sir. Just before you were saying that doing all that was not an NAP violation.
Yeah. Right, because no NAP violation was ever committed, right? In this hypothetical situation, right? You're
causing the emotional duress, all that depression, whatever, is not an NAP violation to this vulnerable person.
Well, maybe we should have this conversation. Is that an NAP violation?
If you were to mentally impair somebody, put them in a suggestive state, a la roofing or hypnosis, and then taking advantage of that person based on that, causing them to be emotionally duressed or whatever, sure sounds like it.
Okay.
Like when the strippers roofied the guy and then took him for $100,000 and whatever and stuff. So that sure sounds like he's not liable for that money.
I mean, that's an interesting position. I mean, now the roofies thing, I'm with you. The hypnosis thing, though, I don't think many libertarians would agree with you. I really don't. I think, so you're saying that just by talking to someone, if I say, imagine you're in a chair and you're floating in the air and all this stuff, and then you get in a suggestive state, and then I say, do this, or whatever I say, from there on, I can orally.
Oh, wait a minute.
NAP violation.
Hold on.
Okay, yeah, go.
The movie Get Out, and I'm using this as a basis of reference, and I'm sorry if the people listening to this haven't seen that movie.
I haven't, but okay, go on.
The main character is hypnotized against his will. He is not asked, hey, I'd like to hypnotize you. It was sold to him like, hey, let's have a conversation, and I'm a therapist or a psychologist, right, Daniel? And like, I'm going to help you not, smoke or whatever. But at no point was he like, hey, I'm going to hypnotize you, and then, there was no consent given, as I recall, from the guy. Is that correct, Daniel? If I'm remembering this correct?
That is correct, and she actually started doing it hours before at their little lemonade sit down.
Right, she was swirling the teacup thing right when he arrived, right?
Right. But we should really get back to Ghost in the Shell because we only have like 15 more minutes in the show.
Well, this we might need to go into like Turn the Frogs Gate time. So it sure seems to me like if you need to be able to give consent in order for anybody to put you in that kind of a state, whether it be through chemical means or through this hypnosis situation, regardless of whether you believe in hypnosis or not or whatever. If it's a real thing, I would think that before you hypnotize somebody, you would need their consent.
Okay, so yes, hypnosis is 100% real. I've studied it a bit. It's completely real. So yeah, it's not a make-believe thing. But and ethically, I believe that trained hypnotists do ask for consent before trying to do any sort of persuasion techniques on someone. So I think that's a kind of like a common sense ethics, but it's not necessarily like the libertarian ethics that could be the basis of a legal system. So I think we can kind of separate those two concerns. But so first of all, hypnosis is not as cut and dry as maybe a movie might portray it to be. Hypnosis it's not that you can just control someone. It's just that they're more suggestible. And what you're doing is you're getting them to put their brain waves in a certain, and this is when a neuroscientist will probably be listening to this and say that I'm completely misrepresenting this, but you're getting your brain wave in a certain state where it doesn't use all your decision-making faculties to full capacity. So you take suggestions without critically analyzing them as much. But that's very much on you. And some people are just very suggestible in general. And some people you can never hypnotize them. They're completely unsuggestible. But what you do is you walk them through something, or you spin stuff, or whatever you do, and you get them to concentrate and get their brain in a certain state in which is suggestible. So in order to say that someone who was hypnotized is now being taken advantage of, you have to take into account the fact that everyone has a different level of suggestibility. And some people, it's rare, but it's true, that some people will kind of just do whatever people tell them to because they're just that suggestible. Or they could very easily fall into the state, and you could tell them, like, go do this, and they would just do it. And then later they'd be like, I don't know, that you just said to do it, that's why I did it. But they're not, like, they're just very suggestible. But if you said, like, I don't know, like, go, blow up a car or something, and you're saying it like a joke. I guess if you really tell someone to blow up a car, that is different. But if they otherwise, okay, here's a better example. If I say go jump off a bridge, right, and this person is very suggestible, and then they go jump off the bridge, then that's not murder. You didn't murder them. You just said jump off a bridge, and then they did it. Some people are emotionally fragile. Some people will jump off a bridge if you say go jump off a bridge. Again, it's rare, but it's possible. And that's kind of where this whole hacking thing, this whole line of hacking and memories and then getting and then substances, this all gets really blurry. And I think it really breaks down when you're talking about if words can violate the non-aggression principle. And I think it's a very problematic position to say that they can, because again, you can think of a situation where someone is in that state where their brain, if they get the trigger, the verbal trigger of if the sound waves ripple at a certain rate that goes into their ears and then goes to their brain, if the right pattern goes there, then they will go and jump off a bridge. And you could be the one to say the thing, even intentionally. Maybe you want them to kill themselves. Maybe you're a jerk. You could say, "Go kill yourself," and then they actually go kill themselves. And if they do that, I would say intuitively that you are an asshole for saying that. But
sure,
is that illegal to say go kill yourself? That's a radical stance. What if you just say, I don't believe that the wage gap, and what if that is so offensive that they go kill themselves? I bet that's happened. I bet someone has been so upset about the wage gap that they have attempted suicide. I'm sure that's happened. So, like, at what point can you draw liability for your words? And then that comes into another another continuation problem, like we were talking about earlier, where, okay, if the words are okay, then is hacking okay? Because hacking, you're also just sending information at a computer, or I guess in this case, you're just sending information digitally at someone's mind. It's just like sending information through sound waves. So why is information not a violation of the non-aggression principle? I mean, it's a tricky question. I think it's pretty clear cut that when you have like roofies or some sort of substance, that's in the realm of like chemicals and poisons, and but it's kind of a more understandable. We have a more we have a better intuition of it and a more developed legal framework for thinking. Okay, well, if someone was poisoned with plutonium or whatever. What is not plutonium? What is the that radioactive poison that kills people? If you poison them and they die, then you killed them, even though you didn't literally slit their throat. You just gave them that poison and they died. That's been around. That's been a concept in law for many years. I think it's pretty clear that poison comes out on the side of illegal. Roofies come out on the side of illegal. But on the information front, I think that saying "go kill yourself" should be illegal, even though it's reprehensible. And I'm leaning towards saying that hacking is no different. I don't really see much of a categorical difference between hacking and speech. The only caveat there.
I hate to interrupt you, but
sure, no.
I have a question for you based on this line of what you're talking about. Do you believe in Manchurian candidates then?
That's the concept where the person was put into what is that? Where you put into office?
Essentially mind-controlled assassination, like MK Ultra level.
That's like where you get.
I didn't know what I was doing. I was given a certain number of code words, and then then I went and killed Bobby Kennedy or whatever.
Oh, so wait, why would that? What is your question about that?
Well, you're talking about if information. You're just giving somebody information, right? You're just giving. You're just saying this certain number of words. I don't know if you saw the movie Civil War.
No, yeah, and then the difference is, right? Did the NAP ever get violated as a result? So let's go like for again, like if I say come here and you come here, and I'm not just like some guy on the street like, oh, come here, like just like hey buddy, and then if there's a sniper who just happened to shoot, that's different. Like I'm working with a sniper and I say come here, you come here, and then you get shot and killed. There was a non-aggression. My words aided in the murder, and you didn't have to follow my instructions, but you chose to. And I said, "Come here," and I was working with the murderer, and he shot you. That led to a NAP violation.
Right. So wait, is you've seen the movie Civil War?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a character named the Winter Soldier who is a Manchurian candidate type person who's been brainwashed, and when he hears a certain series of words, he basically turns into this mindless killing machine type thing. He's very suggestible, and then he follows a certain set of programming that has already been done to him. Are you saying that he's still responsible for his actions? Is Sirhan responsible for killing Bobby Kennedy?
Well, I think the question there is to what degree does he have control over that situation? Like if he genuinely has no idea, like, so say that I invented.
He wouldn't have done it otherwise. If you take away the programming and the whatever, if he wouldn't have done it, I would say he's not responsible. But if you put that programming in and now he's going to do it, that seems to be the thing that caused him to do it.
So, so if you invented a machine that could just, and let's say that my mind had nothing to do with it. It was a machine. It was like a metal exoskeleton. And it literally went over your whole body, and then it would move all your joints, and it would just control what your body does. So your mind is just sitting there, not even controlling your body, but there's this like robot exoskeleton that controls everything that you actually do, right? So your mind is like a captive inside your body. Okay, so imagine that.
You're in Get Out or Society.
Oh my.
Yeah, Patty, or Kingsman. The plot of that was they play a certain sound or a signal, and then everybody goes crazy and kills each other.
Wow. Okay, I do not know these movies, but. So say you have that sort of thing on you, and then someone is remote controlling you, and they tell you to pick up a gun and shoot someone, and they're
gamer. It's gamer.
Oh my gosh.
It's like every movie.
So, oh man, here I am thinking I have original thoughts. No, apparently not. But
it's all been done before.
I know, seriously. I bet this exact discussion has been had at least 20 times in the last year. But if you shoot someone and you're wearing that exoskeleton that's controlled by someone else, you have no role in it. I would say you're not guilty. You're just along for the ride. In fact, in that particular case, because there was actually physical pressure applied to your body, I think it's a reasonable case to be made that you would have a lawsuit against whoever was controlling you at the time. But to take that analogy towards hypnosis, I don't think hypnosis actually works like that. So in the real world, I wouldn't take I would blame people if under hypnosis they killed people, because you're not that suggestible.
What if there was a chip in their brain, or
right.
their brain cells were changed, like in Gamer?
Yeah. So in that case, if they literally had no control over what they were doing, and if that was actually the case, just like the exoskeleton example, I would say they're then free. They're then free, and it's a tricky. They're free from charges, and that's a very tricky question, because also then that leaves open the negligence aspect, where if you say you have a chip in your brain that controls everything and you have nothing to do with it, and you leave it completely unsecured, meaning anyone can control it. If you get hacked and you really took no precautions, there's a case to be made that out of negligence, you enabled this to happen.
So is the major negligent in the movie then?
I wouldn't say so.
Oh, we're still talking about that movie?
Yeah, we're still talking about Ghost in the Shell, believe it or not.
What did the
she didn't take any actions to prevent hacking? In fact, at one point, she voluntarily gets hacked.
Sure. I think that in that case, if the major violated the non-aggression principle, the major would still be held accountable because of negligence, maybe, or maybe a variety of other factors, or maybe because major has more agency than we really.
So she was culpable in being abducted and having her body murdered?
Not in being abducted and all of that, but if there was like some child walking down the street, walking home from school, and the major just went up and they said, like, go kill the child, and then she just shot the child in the face, and let's say there wasn't like one of those crazy scenarios where that child has a bomb or something, or they told her that the child had a bomb or whatever, some weird edge case, like say it was literally, they said that we want you to, this child is literally a child that is completely innocent, and we just want you to kill this child. And then if the major did that, I think that would, even though the major was completely misguided, thinking that the major just completely misguided, completely trusting this organization that was not trustworthy, et cetera, I would still think that the major would be culpable for having killed the child.
Okay, so wait, it sounds kind of like you're arguing for positive obligations here, that she has some sort of obligation to put some sort of security on her brain/body/ control mechanism. Whatever.
No, I don't think that that's the case. Again, this is one of those situations where I don't think there's been a lot of precedent for this until recently, and I'm sure I'm sure Stefan Kinsella would have some really good thoughts on this, but much more than I can bring to the discussion. But
okay, so just to be clear, you're not arguing for positive obligations. Like if I have my car in my driveway, I don't have an obligation to lock it in order for it to not be stolen, right? To not be culpable when it gets stolen.
Right.
Not me.
Yeah, it's kind of like the difference between what's it called when you don't mean to, is it called manslaughter, when you don't mean to kill somebody but you do on accident? And yep. So like say that I'm driving and it's dark and it's like a corner on the road and I'm just driving, and then someone's like in the road and I didn't mean to, and I just ran into them and accidentally killed them. But maybe even they were somewhere they really shouldn't be, and it was hard to see, and it was very understandable. Anyone, no matter, I was even driving the speed limit, everything. Okay, that's manslaughter. That's I didn't mean to do that. Maybe there's some penalty for that, but it's not huge. Now, if I drank alcohol and I drove and I hit someone in that situation, what is your assessment of that situation? Like how do you?
Yeah, that's a judgment call.
Okay.
I would think that would be a private property situation. Solve all those issues.
Here's another example. I'm on the top of the Empire State Building and I have a brick and I'm like, and I just throw it off the Empire State Building. Okay, and then it killed somebody.
Sure.
Did I kill them? Did I murder them?
You sure did.
Okay, but I didn't mean to, right? But
you were absolutely being reckless. Absolutely, yeah, you were.
Okay, sure.
You showed a wanton disregard for human life by throwing a brick off the Empire State Building.
Okay, right. And it's like, okay, but what if I had okay, but what if it didn't hit someone, right? That wouldn't be illegal. Maybe damage the property of the ground below it or whatever. Okay, that aside. Or maybe what if I had a machine where I would launch the brick, but it was like a really smart computer with cameras, and it could calculate exactly where to launch it, so it would definitely not hit anybody, and then it was fine, right? That would be fine too. So you're free to launch things off of buildings. You're free to set up that situation and launch things off of buildings, have a brick launching machine that doesn't hit people. But
I don't think I'd be wanting to walk around New York City without knowing that there's bricks being launched. But okay.
Hey, no, it only hits the terrorist. It's a really good defense mechanism.
Oh, it can decide who a terrorist is too, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah, absolutely. And by terrorists, of course, they mean libertarians, right? So
Clearly.
We should watch out. But anyways, in that situation.
Liam, before you go on, I just want to ask you this: have you seen Silence of the Lambs?
No, I haven't seen barely any movies. The only movies I've seen are the ones I've talked about.
Sir? You're on the wrong podcast.
You've been on our show 3 times, and what we
I've
do
seen
is we
3
talk
movies.
about movies.
I've only seen 3 movies ever. So.
All right. Well, the point I wanted to make was in The Silence of the Lambs, for offending Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, Miggs is spoken to by Hannibal Lecter into swallowing his own tongue and dying, just using words. So Hannibal Lecter, in my view, murders Miggs.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
By getting him to swallow his own tongue so that he can't breathe and he dies.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that you actually can't die from swallowing your tongue. I could be wrong about that. So that's kind of a plot hole, if that's true, or I'm very wrong, and that's embarrassing. But I wouldn't say that. See, okay, that's very interesting. So we just clearly just disagree on this. I mean, I don't think that if I say swallow your tongue or whatever, if I say the words that get you to swallow your tongue and then you do it, and I didn't touch you, and I didn't like point a gun at you and say swallow your tongue or whatever, I'm literally just convincing you.
Liam, do you not believe in the brown noise?
The brown noise?
The brown note?
The brown noise?
The brown noise. You play that note, yeah, it makes you shit your pants. That seems like a violation.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
You're disrupting. Yeah.
I mean, hey, it's a continuum problem, right? Like I can shine a flashlight at my neighbor's house, but I can't shine a laser beam that burns through the door. You know, like at what point does a flashlight, those photons, whatever the intensity of that, what if
Powder lives in there, or Dracula?
Well.
You know who Dracula is, right? He was in a movie too.
I haven't seen that one either, but I know who it is. Yeah, I mean but I don't mean into the house. I mean like at the door, like at the front door. The light doesn't get in the house. Let's say, even if Dracula's in there, right?
I mean, I would say, if the property owner can establish that there's been harm done,
Yeah.
I think that's an NEP violation, right?
Harm. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Right, well, and that's been our show, everyone. We're at an hour and 2 minutes.
It's our show on Ghost in the Shell.
Now, I do suggest the anime, because the anime version, it's very stylized. It has a very nice ambiance, the world building that Robert and I talked about this in our Kathleen Turner Overdrive in the last episode. But there's a definite sense of place and feel that they develop, and then the music is really good too. It's like super eerie. It's got like these very isolated drum noises, and there's weather that's kind of like part of it, like rain in the city. So I really enjoy the anime, and I think that one of the problems with the live-action movie was that they were trying to stay true to the anime, the source material, but they were like so familiar with it that they didn't understand that somebody totally new to this entire universe wouldn't pick up on some of the cues. So like the garbage guy who had the imaginary wife and kids, like I didn't understand what was going on with that until I saw the anime version, and then they give a little bit of the backstory to that. So I think it was a case of like the professor knowing too much and not able to relate it to the student.
Oh, yeah, right. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few episodes, maybe like 2 or 3. I thought it looked good. I didn't continue watching, but I really like the cyberpunk genre. I don't know why. I just think it's like super cool, and the way that, and I agree that the world building in both the anime from the little I saw of it and in the movie, I thought this was one of the best futuristic looking cities I've seen. Unlike in like Blade Runner. I mean, I only have seen the original. I haven't seen the new one, but I thought that was. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that. So I guess I've seen 4 movies. Blade Runner. I mean, that was just a depressing looking world. Maybe it looked good back when, what was it, made in the 70s or something? Maybe
like 82.
The 80s. Okay, maybe that looked cool in the 80s. It looks terrible now. It looks absolutely depressing. But I mean, I thought that this depiction of, I guess, Tokyo in the future looked pretty cool. And yeah, I do remember getting good vibes from the anime, but I should revisit it. I just don't have a lot of time to watch TV nowadays.
Well, what I'm talking
Well,
about
Daniel,
is
I
the
know.
movie that started it all, not like the. I know there's a whole bunch of like episodes and stuff in between.
There was a movie that started it all, because I watched a TV anime series.
Yeah, that's after.
There's Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. There's Ghost in the Shell 1, Ghost in the Shell 2. There's all kinds of Ghost in the Shell stuff. Plus an original manga,
Oh.
I believe by Toshiro Mifune.
Okay, so I haven't seen that then.
All right. Well, I highly recommend it, and maybe what we should do is watch this movie again, and then try to do a focused episode on it. Because one of the other issues I wanted to talk about was the SJW panties in the bunch component, because people were all up in arms about ScarJo whitewashing this Japanese property, right? Because in the original, it's Japanese people, it's an Asian city, and they've got the ScarJo playing the main character.
Right. Yeah, but I don't remember the anime character looking very Asian, if I recall. I think that the cast seemed good to me. Seemed true to what I remember the original drawings to look like. But yeah, that is. You're always going to get outrage over that, and then they have the reverse version where then they replace I think both sides here kind of have some sort of, at least probably should do some less complaining than they do. Like the social justice warriors will get upset when they're a person of color, not to be confused with a colored person. A person of color is replaced by someone who's white. But then, I know there's been lots of remakes where they take a white character and make them black for clear social justice reasons. And then I have seen a lot of libertarians and more right-wing people the same people who say, oh, it's fine, it's just Scarlett Johansson, it's made by an American company, they're giving all the excuses for that one way, and then when they replace Annie with a black girl or whatever, there's lots of examples of this, then they get oh, what, this is just pandering to the social justice warriors, blah blah blah. It's like, well, some people like having a black character replace a white character, and some people like having a white character. They think Scarlett Johansson does a good job and is qualified, and I agree. I think Scarlett Johansson is qualified to replace whatever. Not even replace, to play this character. I think she looked the part. I thought it was a good job on her part. But and as much as sometimes I cherish the memories of some characters that were maybe one race originally and then remade to be a different race, I kind of have. I don't want to be. I don't want to overly complain about these things, because I do think that the studios ultimately, although they may have a social agenda, ultimately their only agenda is making more money, and they think they can sell tickets or copies of a movie that has a black character replacing a white character. And I think that's totally fine, and I think that's what the market wants. And to the degree that it's not, it's the degree that they won't do that. So I try not to complain in either way, and I like to be kind of fair and balanced in this.
You like Fox News?
I always fall back on my standard response to this question, in that the social justice-y types come at it from a super privileged position where they don't have their money on the line.
Yeah. Right.
Like, these people are risking hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're hoping to get a return on this money. So they are casting who they think will sell tickets and get butts in seats. And these social justice-y types are like, well, you should make the movie how I want it to be made, based on my $0 investment or my $10 ticket price investment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put all of my negative $80,000 of student loans towards making this movie.
But there certainly is a lot of pandering that does go on.
To a vocal minority, though. I think they over-pander.
But I also think it's not a big.
I don't care.
I also think it's not a big deal, and it's something that we should probably just get over, like in any of these circumstances. Now, there's Star Wars, which I saw. I didn't see the most recent one. I saw that whatever the first one that it was acquired by Disney. That first, what I'm talking about?
5 movies.
Oh, 5. Okay, yes, you're right. Oh my God, 5. Wow. No, definitely not 6. I definitely haven't seen 6 movies. But
you've seen The Force Awakens, yes.
Okay, so The Force Awakens. I thought that was social justice warrior garbage, and that they basically butchered the story and butchered a bunch of stuff. You should watch the latest one then. Yeah, I probably will at some point, but I'm not going to pay to see it in theaters or whatever. But I thought that was bad. But what they really did there was they really they ruin the story, in my opinion. And I understand. I have friends who really liked it, and I think that's fine if you like it. I don't hold anything against it. I just didn't like it. I thought it was too pandery. But if someone's just a different race and it doesn't really affect the story, like if you can't get past that, I mean, to me that's either racist or immature, depending on how you want to cast it. But it's just like, okay, so someone's white and they're instead of Asian, even though they're in Japan. Like, okay, like, but you can't look past that. Or someone was in the original was white and now they're black. Like it's not like crazy. It's not like they're playing a movie where this is like a black person in the KKK and it's about the KKK and this person's like the leader of the KKK and then they cast
Dave Chappelle did that.
Oh, did he? Well,
that's good. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Oh, sure, yeah.
KKK.
Oh, yeah. I might have seen that. Or maybe I've just seen a thumbnail of that. But
all right, well, let me ask you this. I saw
hilarious,
this morning, and it's sort of related to all this. There was a comedian who got offered a contract with Netflix to do a special, and, they've been doing a bunch of them. Chappelle just did a new one. Amy Schumer's done one, and Cat Williams has one out, and someone else who kind of a bigger name. But this woman, this morning, announced that she wanted people to boycott Netflix to support her, claiming that Netflix is being race and sex biased against her because they only offered her $500,000 to do this 1 hour special. But Amy Schumer got $11 million, and I guess Chappelle and someone else got like $20 million. So she's making it into a sex and race thing, even though the people she's comparing herself to, she's a black woman, she's comparing herself to a white woman and a black man. If
she's comparing herself to far more successful comedians.
Yes, and that is the point. And so I saw that there were a bunch of comments on this because I think it was like a Facebook post, and for some reason it showed up on my feed. I don't know. They're changing the algorithm, so you see more like non-page stuff. You see more like individual person stuff. I don't know. It's weird. But it seemed pretty ridiculous to me, and most people are just like, well, you've been in like 3 movies and a bit part. I mean, what do you expect? Like Amy Schumer was in a hit movie over the summer. She sold out Madison Square Garden. Dave Chappelle is a big name, A-lister. You're like a C-lister, if that.
Yeah, that's
Well, did you guys hear that the controversy with the reshoots about that movie with Mark Wahlberg and the other lady?
Oh yeah, and he wanted more money to come back and reshoot it, and then people complained, so then he donated the money to someone. I'm real fuzzy on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So they had reshoots because Kevin Spacey, they didn't want to have him in the movie after the big scandal and whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
So they hired another actor. Well, they had to reshoot his scenes. So Mark Wahlberg comes back, but he's like, I don't work for free.
Yeah.
I get $1.5 million for reshoots. I'm sorry, that's my contract. But then this lady, she's like, well, yeah, I'll go do it for free. This is a big deal for me. I'll just go. It's fine. Then the news gets a hold of it, and they're like, look at this wage gap. How could she possibly get paid? He got paid like 1,000 times more than her, 10,000 times more than her. Look at this discrimination. And I'm like, well, she obviously agreed to get paid less. She agreed to it. It was completely voluntary. That's why. And then he wasn't. He was not agreeable. He was like, no, I'm going to need to get paid. There was literally no controversy there. But yeah, Mark Wahlberg gets shamed into essentially donating his salary to some whatever bullshit cause. It was so stupid. Daniel, have you seen Akira?
No.
Well, if you enjoyed the world building and the sound design and the music from Ghost in the Shell, I think you'd really enjoy Akira. It's a really good cyberpunk type story. And the world building and the music is amazing.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Oh, so I guess I've seen 7 because I also said I had seen Blade Runner. I didn't like Blade Runner.
I'm with you. I didn't like the original. But I like the remake. The remake world building is amazing, by the way.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna check it out then. But yeah, the original, I just thought I didn't even get I just thought the story was dull. The environment was really depressing.
Dark and muddy. Yep.
Yeah, who wants? It's not cool. It's like lame. I wasn't a fan. But in general, like cyberpunk is just super cool to me. One thing that I really like, the reason why I got into cyberpunk is I actually saw Ghost in the Shell, and then shortly after that, I saw this documentary on YouTube by Wired, and it was about the city Shenzhen in China, and that's kind of like a cyberpunk city in real life. It's like where all the tech is manufactured, and it's kind of like one of those Asian cities, lots of sky rises, like very built up, but like also like you can like go in like these kind of like slummy streets and like but there's like people are like dealing electronics on the corner because it's like where all the factories are. So there's all these parts. So everyone's like selling like keyboard parts or phone parts, and like there's these videos of people going to Shenzhen and they build their own iPhone with all the spare iPhone parts there and stuff. And I just like saw that in the real world, and I saw Ghost in the Shell, and I got really into it, and I started like listening to like cyberpunk music from like soundtracks and stuff, which is actually I like the music. It's good, and yeah. So and there's supposedly like a video game coming out soon that's going to be like a cyberpunk open world, which I'm excited for, even though I don't play many video games.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So Liam, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a pleasure as well. Yeah, cool. This was awesome. I had fun.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime. I'm always down to come on.
Sweet.
All right, yeah, man. Sounds good. Well, thanks again, and let's all get some sleep.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, sounds good. Bye.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Peace out.